Throughout the First World War, thousands of idealistic young Americans eagerly volunteered to drive ambulances in support of France and Italy. They served in various organizations, including the American Field Service, the American Hospital of Paris, and the American Red Cross. The vast majority of the volunteers were either college students or recent graduates. Many were from well-known Ivy League schools such as Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. One of the volunteers was from the lesser-known Clark College in Worcester, Massachusetts. His name was Rupert Lindsey. He was 19, and he was from Hampton, New Hampshire. In May 1917, 1 month after America entered the war, Rupert joined the Clark College Ambulance Unit. Shortly thereafter, he was accepted by the American Field Service for duty in France. However, before leaving the States, he was informed that he would be driving supply trucks instead of ambulances. Consequently, after arriving in Paris, he obtained a release from the American Field Service and joined the Volunteer Ambulance Corps of the American Hospital of Paris. This ambulance service helped over 10,000 Allied soldiers. Later in the war, the hospital came under the control of the U.S. Army. While stationed in Paris, Rupert and his co-driver Mac helped transport wounded soldiers to the hospital from the trains coming from the front lines. Later, they were assigned to the French front and transported the wounded to field hospitals. In January 1918, Rupert, now in the U.S. Army, was sent to the Northern Italian Front and assigned to the same unit that Ernest Hemingway had served in earlier. During his tour of duty, Rupert wrote a number of revealing letters to a young woman named Ernestine, who lived in Hampton, New Hampshire. These letters reflect a comfortable candor in sharing both the harsh and satisfying moments of his life on the front. Here are two of the letters. September 1st, 1917, the French Front. Dear Ernestine, the last time I wrote I was leaving for the front, wasn't I? Well, I went and saw and did, and here I am still in range of cannon. The French infantry took Lamore home in Hill 304, and it was interesting to see the French artillery moved up and the wonderful rapidity of the advance all along. But the other side of it, the wounded and dead during the attack. Men often died before we could reach the hospital, the car covered with blood and all. That's what tries a fellow's nerve, if anything. But for a while that is all over for us. We are on repo in Triancourt. The best part of it is that you can get something to eat, omelet, wine, toasted bread, butter, and all the jam you can eat. That is what we all like to get back for after living on sardines and boiled beef. For this time, so to say, but I hope to hear from you soon. Perhaps then I shall not be a volunteer ambulancer, but with the U.S. Army. Most sincerely, Rupe. November 7th, 1918, the Italian Front. Dear Ernestine, I was sent down on the Piave River on the 23rd of October, and the same night was sent out to a post on the river called Cavalli, where everything was ready for the offensive. The bombardment came on the night of the 25th, and under the artillery fire, the Italians put up 2 bridges. 2 brigades got across before the bridges were blown up by the Austrians, and all that day there was lively fighting. For a while, things looked very doubtful. I was sent from my post to a town 4 kilometers up the river where there were 8 soldiers severely wounded. The road was lined with trenches full of soldiers ready to cross. Shells were flying everywhere. Searchlights were all over the place where the wounded were. Luckily, I got the first load back to the hospital before I fell into one monstrous large shell hole. By the time I arrived for the second load, it was getting daylight, and I could see the bridge and the French and Italians hurrying across. The Austrians were shelling heavily, and many of the soldiers never made it. I saw one man thrown into the air in two parts, and one part of him stuck in the remains of a tree. For once, I never expected to return from that trip, and to this minute, I don't understand how I got back without even as much as a scratch. Remember I said some months ago that the war might be over by Christmas? What do you think of it now? There's only Germany left, and she can't stand it long. As ever, most sincerely, Rup.